yourself and tell us about the company you got selected in.
I am Tuhin Chatterjee. I am a major in chemical engineering from IIT Kharagpur, and I got selected in ITC.
Okay. Can you tell us about the application process at ITC and the interview process?
The whole selection procedure is divided into 3 steps. First, submission of your resume, and they have a specific application form where you have to fill on some answers. Second is a group discussion, and third is an interview, which is a 2-stage process again. I'll come on to the application form. The application form basically had questions about your academic life, about your performances in the various semesters that you've taken, that you've been here, and about any academic scholastic achievements that you might have had, and any extra academic activities that you might have engaged yourself in, sports, soccer, that was pretty open. That was the common part. Apart from that, they had a few behavioral questions in them, wherein they asked you to describe, like one of the questions that I can recollect was, how do you believe you're unique, some unique thing that you've done here, or maybe or something about, tell us what has been your major achievement here, somewhere where you've, there was one question can you relate to some experience where you've put mind over matter. That was the ITC question this year. So they had a few 2-3 questions that you have had, that they had in the application form, and you had to, and then,
Then let's go on to the GD part.
So okay, that was the first part, and then group discussion. That was after being shortlisted, of course. They had given me a case study sort of a thing, wherein they had an incident described. Few people do something, and you have to rate them in order of order of morality. Basically, how moral a person was, how ethical a person was. Okay, this was the group discussion.
Can you tell us about what matters in a group discussion? You have been through one and you have done well. Can you tell us what matters really in a group discussion? What do you think got you through the group discussion?
Well, a group discussion, the one thing that you should always bear in mind, that you should let go of the idea that you have to perform well there. It's not that. Thing is, how well you perform in a group, how well can you take the group along and come to a consensus. That is what is important. If you keep thinking of how good or how are you going to stand apart in a group discussion, that's not the right methodology. That's not the right ideology. The idea is to you have a matter at hand. You have something that there is a problem at hand. You have 8 people trying to solve it. How can you solve that problem in a group? How can you incorporate their ideas, your ideas? You have to discuss them and finally come to a decision. That is the idea of a group discussion. So firstly, do not believe that it's a forum where you have to stand apart. You just have to do good enough. You just have to be you just have to show that you can work in a team. That is the idea of a group discussion. You can, if you are too disruptive, if you are too assertive, then I'll say you haven't done well in a group discussion. If you don't allow others to speak, then again that's a very bad point. I mean, you have to take the whole group together, and how well you are able to do that determines how well you can perform in a group discussion, and that's the most important thing. So I'll go a step further.
Wrap up.
Could you please come to the interview process and tell us about the stages in the interview, and what were the kind of questions in every stage, and the difficulty level, and finally what kind of people they were looking for?
Okay.
The interview process was
two-stage interview. First was I would say more of a technical interview, and the second was first was part technical, part behavioral, and the second was completely behavioral. The type of questions they had in the interview, well, I'm from chemical engineering, so they had definitely a few technical questions in mind. They had put that forward, but I would say they were pretty elementary. They were pretty workable, and what they were really looking at in the first round of the interview was, personally, I believe after a certain CG cutoff, they just want to make sure that you're there. I mean, you meet their standards of their technical standards, which is not too high. So the questions that they asked me were one-word answers, like what is this number called, what is Reynolds number, and what is Nusselt number, what is this. They were pretty one sentence, one-word answer. They were not problems which you had to grapple on or something like that. Okay, so technically, peace.
What about the difficulty of behavioral questions? Give us an example.
I would say the behavioral questions that they had. See, if you do enough research, then you would know what kind of behavioral can they ask. For me, they asked why not an MBA, and I had an answer prepared. I had basically, before an interview, you should think about, if you look deep down inside, like in you, then you should find out an answer why you're doing what you're doing. And I think you should give that answer. Be honest in an interview. You shouldn't just take up something from the internet that sounds okay.